Hello, and welcome back to another Speedpaint. I'm working on a Baku Deku poster in this one, which is actually for sale on my Etsy as a print right now, so if you end up liking it, maybe go and check that out if you'd like one for yourself. Okay, so the plan for this video is that it is not planned, and so I am just going to kind of freestyle talk about these two a little bit. The first thing that comes to my mind is I do want to preface is I am kind of the kind of fan who I do tend to want to stick closer to canon than not. I'm one of those kind of people that I like all the little details that are in the story, and I like to use that to guide my any other interpretations of the characters, even with like headcanons, you know what I mean? Like AUs can be fun, but most of the time I don't tend to enjoy them to the same degree as I do things that take from canon more. That being said, if we were to discuss how I think these two, should they in canon, get together romantically, I definitely have a couple of versions that I think would be plausible, but there are some that I think are more realistic or likely than others. The biggest one that I stick to in my own brain, I think it would go something like this. I tend to prefer the interpretation that Deku has had this big crush on Katsuki for pretty much their entire lives. It explains a lot of his behavior, from the blatant admiration that he's always shown him, paying such strong attention to everything that Katsuki's ever done all the time. He knows all the things about him, from how he starts with that right hook when he's fighting, or things like that light novel where Deku is the one to notice that Katsuki is sick first, because of something as small as Katsuki hesitating minutely when Ida said something to him. His response time was slightly different, and that's what tipped Deku off to noticing that he was sick. It's those kinds of things that have Deku read so heavily to me as a dude who just has a big crush on his childhood best friend. I don't personally take notes on all of my good platonic buddies, you know. There's noticing things and picking up habits that other people have, and it's another thing to kind of go out of your way and try and almost study them to, you know what I mean, have these kinds of things memorized. It just displays to me like childish crush, and in my interpretation, and I think if you really wanted to go, you can interpret it from the canon text. Deku's crush goes from that childish, just blind admiration to actual love over the course of their lives. The twist on this, to me, and what I think is an interesting take, is Deku not categorizing those feelings of having a crush as being a crush. He just doesn't realize that's what it is. He's never given it that label, he's never thought about it to that degree. He's feeling the feelings that are having a crush, but he has not realized that's what it is. I like that interpretation a lot. I think it ties well into the Black Whip plotline a lot, the control your heart, and how he failed several times, specifically over Katsuki, to do so, because Katsuki has always been his blind spot emotionally. He's always been the biggest inspiration to him in his hero work, and I say that even over All Might because frankly Deku said it first with the whole "you were a hero even closer to me than All Might" that he said blatantly to Katsuki. It's things like that where it's All Might is Katsuki and Deku's shared hero. He is a driving force that connects them so deeply, but Deku's biggest hero, the biggest inspiration, and the inspiration that has actively helped him become a better hero, a more healthy hero, has been Katsuki. The text is leading us in that direction. We have, if not just blatantly stating that for us. You have Deku, who has the saving from All Might, and Katsuki, who has the winning from All Might, and they need to come together and mix their ideas, not only as like collaborating within their hero work together, but like their own mindsets need to mix, because the whole lesson we're learning here from My Hero is that you can't let things fall on just one person. You know, change is not up to just one person. It needs to be a community effort. It needs to be an everyone effort. We all need to work together. Teamwork is ultimately going to be stronger than any one person, even if that person is All Might, because during the final exam arc, Katsuki and Deku did come out victorious during their little spat with All Might. Technically they won by running away, but that was the rules set down. They did succeed against All Might, and they did take some hits from him and didn't go down immediately, so that says something to me too. But the ultimate thing is teamwork makes the dream work. In this story, it's cheesy, but it's true, and I like it a lot. But I think I went off on a little tangent there. Let me get a little bit back on track to Deku's romantic feelings. I like to read him as just a repressed gay dude, or bisexual dude. I use gay as an umbrella term here. I kind of flop back and forth between thinking if Izuku is gay or bisexual. Honestly, either one works just fine. The point is, at the end of the day, that he is into dudes, and into Katsuki specifically. So the details of that are not nearly as important to me as that fact. But Deku being, like, not realizing he's gay, not realizing what his feelings are, and being the kind of guy who shoves away the more deeper emotional parts of him, I think is an accurate interpretation to have when you have things like the Black Whip storyline failing to control his heart, and then even when you have Toga confess on the battlefield that she loves Izuku and wants him to be her boyfriend, and Deku's response is, "What are you talking about?" And then the narration coming from what seems to be Katsuki himself saying Deku doesn't realize or didn't realize that this whole time Toga's feelings were romantic in nature towards him because she never outright said it before. Because he's a damn nerd, he didn't think to read into her feelings that way. That's telling of Izuku. They're straight up telling us, the audience, that Izuku would not know if someone is romantically interested in him if it bit him on the ass. That's just interesting to me. It also kind of implies to me that he wouldn't really know if he had romantic interest in somebody else. That being specifically Katsuki makes it even more complicated, because his feelings for Katsuki have always been complicated, always been something both of them have tried to kind of shove away or couldn't really understand without the help of the other, and because they never communicated clearly, that they kind of have this weird status quo of we don't really know what the other one is thinking, and frankly half the time they don't even know what they themselves are thinking. So that kind of dynamic, paired with knowing that Deku is so oblivious in these sorts of things, I think it plays really well into the romantic Baku-Deku dynamic. Deku can't recognize his own feelings being romantic for Katsuki. How on earth is he going to interpret Katsuki starting to get a crush on him, you know? Because we've also seen, for Katsuki's side, he's very much an actions over words kind of guy, and because of that, he has atoned thoroughly. He's changed into a much better person. He is such a compelling character. I love his arc very, very much. I love the way that it's done. I love all the little details of him. And Izuku sees these changes in Katsuki too. He can see for himself, hey, I'm getting closer to Katsuki. He says it himself. I'm so blessed that I can talk to him normally again. Like, they train together, and it's their dynamic is shifted into a very healthy place at this point in the story. I mean, All Might and Katsuki had this conversation too, where Katsuki is in part doing this to try to atone for the past. Like, I'm gonna help Deku out with his training for One For All in some sort of effort to try to make up for hurting him in the past. You know, I think he genuinely just wants to do it, obviously too. I don't think Katsuki would do anything he didn't want to do, including atoning and apologizing. But he does these things. He cares for Deku. He genuinely does. He's gotten to the point where he can accept how he feels about Deku. And unlike Deku, Katsuki is the person who does consider his emotions a lot. He does delve into the whys, hows, how can I fix it of his emotions. It takes him a while to accept feelings that he has about not inherently being the best because of his quirk, not inherently being better than Deku because of his quirk. Like, it takes him a while to get over that ego that was ingrained in him as a child. But the moment that he does, he starts to course correct himself and change his attitudes, and it benefits him and it benefits everyone else around him. But Katsuki came to these conclusions on his own. He came to the conclusion that he needed to change on his own. He came to the conclusion on how to do it on his own. That was all him. He doesn't have outside sources that are encouraging him to do this necessarily. So it shows the difference between them in how Katsuki would, I think, recognize if someone had a crush on him, or if he had a crush on somebody else. I think it's something he would figure out. So where I interpret it where Deku had a crush basically the entire time they knew each other up till now, and his feelings just grew and grew and grew, and he didn't realize what was happening, Katsuki did not have a crush at first. He genuinely was like, okay, I'm friends with this guy, and as he started to grow into the mindset of strong quirk equals societal worth, he started to push Deku away, and he started to feel insecure, and he was too busy stewing in his own emotional bullshit to feel crush feelings for Deku. I definitely think he was always mixed feelings. I definitely never think he hated him. I definitely think he just hated the way Deku made him feel, and he couldn't stop fixating on him because Deku was always the one guy in his life who did not play his predetermined role in Katsuki's perfect ideal world of how the world should work and how people should function. Deku always broke the mold, and that was something that caused Katsuki to pay more attention to him than anyone else. Kind of like Deku always paid more attention to Katsuki than anyone else because he was so amazing and interesting, and he had this drive that Deku wanted for himself. He wanted that kind of drive too. And Katsuki's drive inspired Deku's own drive, and Katsuki, even if he didn't want to accept it, did the same. He was always comparing himself to Deku, even when he was quirkless, or when he thought he was quirkless at the beginning of UA too. All this to say, Katsuki is the character who does recognize his emotional feelings, and he does try to analyze and work through those things, even if it took him time to get there. In the grand scheme of things, did it really take him that long to make such a big change in his life? You know, the end of middle school, even the end of middle school, he stopped the bullying of Deku, and then even before their first year of high school is up, he has done this complete turnaround of he's apologized and he's trying to be Deku's friend again, and he has a completely different view of teamwork, and he's not just trying to do everything on his own. He's the one now at this point imploring Deku to lean on him and I'll lean on you. It's almost like their roles have switched. So I don't think at all that Katsuki would have any sort of world-shattering revelation about coming to the conclusion that he has a crush on or loves Deku. He's already had his time in the sun, turmoiling over Deku and how Deku makes him feel, and once he starts to accept things, once he gets to the point where he's like, oh yeah, I definitely have a crush on him. Cool, that's fine, of course, yeah, duh. I'm gonna own that. He's the kind of guy like that once he is something, once he's going to do something, once he's decided something, it is so. He's got that confidence, and so I think he'd be very confident in accepting that he is in love with Deku. It's just, I also think he kind of deserves it. After everything he's been through, he deserves an easy time falling in love, easy acceptance. But Deku, again, if we're going with the idea that he has this whole time not recognized his love for being love, I think it's so funny to have him get just slapped in the face with the realization that, oh my god, this whole time I've been in love with Kachan and I didn't know it, and now it's all I can think about and I'm going crazy. Like, I just think that that's really cute and funny, because Deku, you know, being the dorky spiraling type, and he's very obsessive, so him, once he switches that mindset of Katsuki is my image of victory to Katsuki is also like the love of my life, then I think he'd obsess over that and fixate on it a lot. But it's even funnier to me because it's like, what would make Deku finally reach that conclusion? I think it would realistically be one of two things. I think the first would be if Deku found out, either through Katsuki or something else, that Katsuki was gay. If Deku found out Katsuki was gay, then I think that would open Deku's mind to the possibility of like, oh, that means Katsuki could have a boyfriend. I could be a boyfriend. I could be Katsuki's boyfriend. You know what I mean? That kind of mindset just slowly opens up, and now it's all he can think about. And, you know, maybe even some sprinkle in some, like, what if somebody else gets to be Katsuki's boyfriend and it's not me? And he just kind of starts to lose his mind a little bit. But the other version of Deku finding out that his feelings are romantic would be if Katsuki himself confessed first and was just like, hey nerd, I like you, I'm just gonna say that to you, I don't want there to be any confusion between us anymore, I'm just gonna tell you how I feel. But, like, Katsuki could go in completely not expecting reciprocation, or like just doing it casually is so funny to me. But that's the moment where Deku hits that thunderclap. Oh shit, I do love Katsuki, I love Katsuki too. Almost paralleling that Toga moment of, I like you, be my boyfriend. But this time it's Katsuki, and this time Deku feels the same, and he's just feeling so many things at once, and like, yeah, I just think it'd be funny. I think it'd be funny, and I think it'd be fitting for them. I feel like this has gotten a little bit away from me. All this to say, I love them very much. I would always love to talk more about them. This is just a brief little thing. I hope you like the final piece. Again, if you are interested in getting a physical print for yourself, I do have them for sale in my shop. If you'd like to check that out, it will be in the description below. Till next time, thanks for hanging out.